Hello, everyone. Welcome. We've got three super experienced business leaders who have worked in large organizations and startups. They're all three with startups now. They've all raised significant rounds of funding in the last 12 months. And as we know, with business and especially startups, timing is everything. So well done, guys. It's good to have everything closed these days. And the challenge that we're here to address is, how do you scale technology fast when your company is growing fast and you've got everything from operational technical needs to marketing to security. And so we hope that this is interactive, like I said, and that you guys in the audience, all of us actually, get some useful takeaways from all of this. Most of you are probably familiar with Flyover Future and our newsletters. We cover general innovation in the heartland. We also cover IT strategies and healthcare. So we're watching those things every day. And we're glad you're here. We're also doing events like this quite frequently now because we find them really useful. Good way to build community. We also have a Slack channel. So visit our site, Flyover Future, and subscribe if you're not already. And tell your friends and your relatives and your children about this and have them sign on as well. We'd also really like to thank our sponsor, and I'm grateful just to have a sponsor these days. And so it's ProSource. ProSource is a full-service business technology solutions provider. They serve as a trusted technology partner for organizations across the Midwest. So it's awesome. They're focused on flyover country, and they do everything from managed IT to cybersecurity, enterprise content management, digital transformation solutions, top tier office and production equipment, and managed print services. And I am not yet a client of theirs, but I have met the people, and I can tell you that they've got a great team. It's great to work with them. They've got that good Hartman vibe going on. And so everyone check out ProSource, and thanks a lot to everyone at ProSource for supporting us. But why don't we go ahead and introduce the panelists? Like I said, all have really interesting stories and are working with cool companies. So Rebecca, you want to start us?
Yes, happy to. And first of all, thank you for including me. I'm very humbled to be involved and humbled by the audience attending today, and hope that all of our comments are helpful and useful, and look forward to being more involved in this going forward. So I am a co-founder and CFO of our company, Phosphorus Cybersecurity. Phosphorus provides security to enterprises for exposure created through its IoT connected devices, where bad actors can hack into the networks, mostly through out-of-date firmware and/or passwords. And while a few other companies claim that they can help detect the problem, the vulnerabilities, we're the only ones that can actually fix it. The only ones.
Really? Cool.
The only ones. My husband, our chief technology officer, Earl Adey, and I founded the company 5 years ago, and we're seeing very strong demand for our product. No doubt due to the risk that we all have from being hacked and its severe consequences. And in fact, demand's now far outstripping supply, our ability to keep up with the requests for POVs. So our clients are amongst, they're global industry leaders in their segments, mostly including the world's largest financial institutions. So that's us.
I was messing with Bluetooth the other day. I was in a public place and I was amazed. All the connections I had right there, right? And I thought about you guys. I thought, man, all this stuff is very, very vulnerable, right?
Over 50 billion devices globally. So lots of opportunities to get hacked, all of us.
50 billion. That's crazy. Wow. All right, Christy.
Hi, everybody. I echo kind of what Rebecca said. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's an exciting opportunity. Hope I can share something that's useful for us, and I'll probably learn something myself. So excited about that. I am the CFO at Climavision. Climavision is a weather tech information services business. We're building climate technology from the ground up. We'll be combining terrestrial sensors with space-based observations. Our team of renowned meteorologists, leading scientists, and passionate weather enthusiasts are changing weather forecasting as we know it by uncovering the clearest, most accurate picture of our weather intelligence. You can think about it, if you think about the United States as a big puzzle, there's a few pieces here and there that are missing, and we are going to be plugging in those puzzle pieces, making weather forecasting much better than it is today. So we are actually just a year. It was our birthday, celebrating 1 year in the past couple weeks. So yeah,
congratulations. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. It's been a crazy year, right?
It has been a crazy year.
Crazy couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you guys are doing is fascinating, and because you have terrestrial devices and you're using satellites, right?
That's right. That's right. So we will own their smaller radars. We will own all of those. So we'll be the largest private company from a weather perspective when we after we get done installing all of those across the U.S.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people aren't aware of how scattered those devices are, and there's some areas that just aren't covered at all. Then you look globally, and it's crazy. So again, huge opportunity, right?
Huge opportunity. We're here to make it better. So more data will make it more accurate, and we're here to do that.
It's nice to have somebody that's going to assemble data and know actually how it's going to be used, right?
Very true.
Anyway, we may come back to that. Charles.
Very cool.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you bet. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Charles Wyatt. I'm the CFO of Nice Healthcare, and we are about a 4-year-old tech-enabled health services business. And the easy way to think about that is we are a direct primary care clinic that sells our services to employers through a monthly subscription. So we operate in 12 states, 18 different markets. We've got about, depending on the day, about 75,000 patients on our platform. And we, as I said, offer our services through a monthly subscription. For that monthly subscription, our employers allow all of their employees access to unlimited primary care, about 550 free prescriptions. We have a mental health offering. We have a physical therapy offering as well, all done via either a virtual chat, virtual telehealth, similar to what we're doing now. And the unique thing about Nice Healthcare is that we actually employ nurse practitioners that will travel to your home to continue that care. So we are one of the few, if not the only, that provides care through all three of those mediums, whether it's online, chat, video, or actually in person in your living room.
That's such an interesting model, right?
Yeah. It's fascinating, and we were founded, like I said, about 4 years ago, all with the notion of, the problem with healthcare is the price, and so. Our monthly subscription, believe it or not, depending on the market, it's less than $40 per employee per month. And for that, we're actually able to treat a significant number of healthcare needs that are outside of a typical health insurance plan. So we are really making a very, very big impact in the overall healthcare system and making it more accessible, more affordable to more people.
Yeah, I think it's a really great model. And what's interesting, and we have a lot of entrepreneurs who read our newsletters. I assume that some of them are in the audience. And what's so interesting is that, and this is the thing, again, you talk about timing, but all of you started these businesses before the problem was obvious to everyone, right? I mean, IoT, being on top of that and seeing that coming and knowing how ubiquitous it was going to be. I mean, Charles, pandemic opening up telehealth. And even though I don't think anybody knew that was going to be an inflection point, everybody knew it was going to come, but nobody really knew when or how. And that makes such a difference. I mean, I've loved it, right? And then Christy, what you guys are doing is such a big problem, right? To have the vision to say, actually, this can be done and it could be done in a profitable way. And that now there's technology that enables it, like the little tiny satellites, which actually Kentucky's a leader in that, in small satellites. I don't know if you know that or not, but anyway, so very huge opportunities with non-obvious problems at first. And now, a year later, 4 years later, significant investment. And so we're here partly to talk about how you deploy those dollars, and specifically on the technology side. As I mentioned earlier, we have IT strategy report, and we have a lot of CIOs who are readers and participants in our Slack channel. And the topic comes up quite often. Kind of simplified, is around how do we fix this alignment issue, right? How do we prioritize where we're going to spend our money, put a stake in the ground, and commit everyone from the CEO throughout the organization to helping do their part to achieve that. And it's a very tricky thing. And we've all talked before about this a little bit. And I just kind of like to go around and talk about your experience, both, opportunities that you were able to take advantage of, and maybe mistakes that you made that, seemed like an obvious answer at the time, and in retrospect aren't, just in case someone's considering doing the same thing. And so we'll just go around, start with Rebecca again, and go ahead.
Yeah, sure. On the topic of alignment with IT, our business today is technology. We are all about technology, and our software engineers rock our world. We are all about them. So for us, it's very easy to be aligned and to prioritize capital and resources on technology. That is what we do. I think it's more difficult when you're in an industry that is not technology oriented. For instance, when I was the treasurer of Home Depot, I saw firsthand how important technology was in providing the foundation to grow the business, and then also technology as an enabler to help drive sales. And we all see that today. We see that through the internet and our cell phones and all the other avenues, for instance, to conduct business and your daily lives. But
right.
When I was at Home Depot, I joined in '96 when we only had 500 stores, and we were the fastest growing retailer ever, opening a new store every 48 hours.
Yeah. Amazing company.
Over the course of my career, I saw us grow from 500 stores in the US to 2,000 around the globe. And we literally got to the point in around 2000 when we realized that our systems, our financial and accounting systems and merchandising, would not support sales more than $100 billion. Literally, we could not. And that's because the company was growing so fast and developing the industry that the growth strategy was literally just to open a new store as fast as it could. It was a race to the market. And so there was not really time, I think, to lay the foundation, the backbone of the company, to anticipate the growth and how to scale the business in an efficient way without throwing people at everything as a solution to support the growth. And so we ended up where we could not support 100 billion in sales with all these systems band-aided together.
Right,
and we had a lot of institutional knowledge walking around in individuals, so that we had exposure. If they left, we didn't know how to do this.
No documentation.
So that was a big lesson learned when we started Phosphorus, was that, when we said how high is up here, we knew high was really high up. There was, a lot of growth for this business. And so important early on was to use technology and standardize processes and consistencies to support the growth. So automation and tools and standardization versus just throwing headcount at everything. I mean, you cannot build an IT empire to grow the business. It will just crush your margins. Just adding staffing up is not the solution. smart ways and automation, technology, consistency. Those are the ways to create the foundation to drive the growth. So that really is my kind of biggest lesson learned. And prioritizing your IT spend, not just around the foundation, how to build the foundation to scale the growth, but also, as a business enabler to help your clients with your go-to-market strategy. So really just prioritizing the spend, in those fashions.
Right. Yeah. It's the prioritization that's the key, right? And then having everybody sort of sign an oath in blood or whatever that this is what we're going to do. And, some random VP can't walk in the middle of the second quarter and say, hey, we're going to, do blah, blah, blah. And no one else really knows about it. Right.
It has to be prioritized around your business objectives.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And a lot of this stuff can be outsourced now too. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is also one of the great things. Christy, if there's ever been anyone who was a lucky charm for a business, it has to be you. I mean, you've been with 3 of the coolest companies that were ever started in Louisville. I mean, literally. And I see that and I'm just like, should have hired Christy, man. And now you're with Climavision, but you've done this. This is not your first rodeo, right? I mean, you've been here at least twice before.
Yeah. So my longest stint was at a company called Genscape. It was founded in Louisville. I was there for about 10 years. And when I started there, we were about $20 million in revenue. We grew to over 100 with a number of different acquisitions and sell-offs to the business. So I got my hands in a lot of these pieces and trying to figure out how do you prioritize the different projects, right, from an IT perspective, and how can the CFO and the finance team really help the organization understand the total objective of the business, right, to make more revenue, grow top line,
right,
be profitable, all of those things, and help stack rank like what's the most important, while you're also understanding the risk, right? There may be different reasons that you want to take on those risks for different reasons at whatever stage of the company that you're in. I can give a little bit of color. We at Genscape, we were on a separate accounting system in the early days.
All right.
And we made a larger company decision to go on to Salesforce. And so we did all of that. We plugged in Salesforce. We thought it was great. It was working fantastic, right, on the sales side. And we started customizing and maybe customizing a little bit too much. We layered our financial system on top of Salesforce. So everything was integrated. It worked great. Until we lost our Salesforce developer, right? And then they moved on to something different. And, and then you have to retrain or find someone else that can plug in all of those pieces. So at some point, I think my lesson learned there was you can customize a bit too much. And the rest of the organization also wanted to use Salesforce for their different pieces, right?
Sure, right.
Let me try to make it over here to make this part of my job much easier.
And I think
at that point, you're then paying a ton of money to Salesforce, right, just to keep up with the licenses.
Right.
And there's some things that, depending on how big you are, maybe you don't need to be that customized. And so I think that was a big lesson that I don't want to do again.
Right.
And we'll try to step it through a little bit more clearly.
Right. And now at Climavision, you've got, again, the same challenge, except you're there at the beginning.
They're here at the beginning. I think right now, the biggest piece for us is is I try to stay very well connected, right, to our CTO. I have a number of conversations with him every week, like, and right, we're still building the product at the moment as well. So I'm understanding, okay, well, what is that piece that you're talking about that you want to do? What does it actually do for the product? What can it do for our revenue side? Where can we rank that? What do we think about next from a tech perspective? Is it the UI? Is it not so much UI yet? Is it still the back end? Some of that is a little bit of give and take. Okay, how much can we do right now? How much can still be a little bit manual? But how do we spread that cost so that we can scale most effectively for the future? I think it's all of those things. But really, for me, I like to know all the details so that I can help then understand, okay, from a cost perspective, what is that going to look like? But also risk and mitigation, and when do we really need that piece? So us working together has become, it's just been very helpful on my side, and I think on his too, right? Because we can challenge each other.
Well, yes,
questions.
Totally. Well, it's interesting. A huge percentage of senior leadership in technology came out of programming, right? And they know, most of them, that it's the communication skills and the understanding the other parts of the business that are kind of missing from the toolkit, right? And these conversations quite often boil down to relationships, exactly what you said, and frequently talking and having the finance team understand what's happening on the product side, right? Yes. And the product side understanding the trade-offs. And, one of the things we learn is that, humans are typically really bad at risk mitigation. And both of you brought up this concept of measuring the risk. And I think that technologists are particularly bad because they're very excited about just, we can build this, right? And they can build it. And the other thing you brought up, which I think is interesting and important, especially for startups that are growing, is if a key person has domain expertise that no one else has and they leave, that can be a problem. And on the tech side, well, in a lot of aspects of the company, it comes down to documentation, right? Which no one has time for, or wants to do. But if there's a developer who, has got all of the system in their head and they haven't documented it, and if they leave, maybe it's time to, start to document it, because hardly anyone is doing that, especially, when you're doing your homegrown projects, it's let's go get her done, right? So we can come back to some of those. Charles?
Yeah, I'll give you kind of a two-part answer. The first part of that aligns closely with what Rebecca was saying around allocating resources and making sure there's a healthy balance between how do we allocate our resources and technology resources towards kind of either new product or customer-facing things, right? In my world, in a tech-enabled services business, we don't actually sell the tech, but it's actually required for us to provide our services. And so, right, there's a lot of discussion around how many resources do we put behind building a better app or a better customer experience or integrating with these other EMRs or something that actually impacts the end result and the customer experience and what they're receiving, as they go in and open our app and use our services. And the flip side of that is how do we appropriately allocate resources to the back end operations so that we can actually scale the business, right? And when you're a $5 million business going to 50 million to 100 million, right? There's an inflection point at which doing things on spreadsheets and Post-it notes no longer becomes a viable option, right? And so you need to kind of, I think, do a little forward thinking and say, right, I know that this tech or this process or whatever we're doing today is probably a little bit ahead of the curve, but that's okay, because if the organization continues to scale the way that we want it to and the way that we all think it will, and the reason we've raised all this money, right, to do, then we don't want to be a hindrance to that growth. So there is this natural balance that you have to find in saying, yes, let's go build a better product, a better experience, but at the same time, let's invest in some of these, unsexy technology solutions that integrate two different systems, so you don't end up with a whole bunch of manual effort and manual workarounds.
A lot of that comes down to, what's your company's, I have a theory that companies have a DNA, right? It's product or marketing or operations, right? One of those three. And that tends to be then the hub of the wheel, more or less, right? If we're a product-centric company, then everything we do goes through that filter, right? And we make the best product in the world. So I think, looking at that and being realistic about, well, what is our DNA? What do we naturally, culturally focus on? And then getting customer feedback. You said 75,000 customers, and that's a great opportunity to get some data. And then the challenge is to really figure out what does the data really mean, but the UI testing and those kinds of things, right?
Yeah, and it is, so 75,000 patients, different number of customers. But I think it's also an interesting dynamic, because in a lot of cases, you're trying to push the organization against its own DNA, right? A lot of these entrepreneurs that start, at least the ones that I've worked for, are very sales and marketing focused. That's what they know, that's what they do. And their sole focus, and they wake up every single day saying, how do I grow this organization? How do I get more customers, more revenue, better marketing, more brand recognition, all of these things? And so us as CFOs, we're oftentimes trying to push the organization against their DNA and say, again, the inflection point of no longer being able to manage this business on spreadsheets is coming. Let's get ahead of it.
Right. Yes, exactly. Get ahead of it.
Yeah. And that's a tricky thing to manage. And I would also say maybe the second part to my answer here actually aligns really well with Christy's answer around staying close to our technology partners. And I'll give you a good example of an organization that I worked at directly previous to Nice Healthcare. It was a fintech, and we had a ton of engineers all focused on building really cool product, adding features, at least monthly, and making the product super robust and a really, really functioning, well thought out, nice product that's creating a ton of value for our end customers. Building all this cool stuff. So what does that mean? And is there additional opportunity for us to charge for that and create new SKUs and create pricing and packaging? Because, we developed and did releases for probably 2 years without changing pricing, without doing anything, without taking credit for that work.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And I think a lot of that is probably, I don't want to own all of it, but I'll own some of it, because I wasn't in the meetings asking the right questions with our technology team and our technology partners, understanding what they're doing. And I think had I done that, understand all these things that we were developing and releasing and the customers were seeing real value out of, right? Let's let that real value translate into a higher price or a different pricing package or something where we can get more credit for it and ultimately benefit the organization. So I think it's doubly important to stay super close with the technology team, have those weekly one-on-ones, monthly meetings, just understand what's actually happening in the product, I think is really critical.
Well, and I think that pricing features, decision that you bring up is also super interesting. And when you have the CFO coming and saying, look, we can do this, right? I mean, we can get better margins and the pricing is in line with what we're offering. And, that's great insight. And you're right. It's not the top thing that your CTO is generally thinking about.
Yeah. They're worried about building cool tech. And that's right. And I think there's an opportunity for the CFO to play that intermediary between the technology side and the sales side, right? Because anytime you talk about raising prices or changing prices to our sales team, they get a little squirrely. But you also, it's our job to push them a little bit as well as understand what's happening in the tech.
Yes. And what you said is exactly why we're doing this panel, right? Because if the CFO and the technology leadership are aligned, that's a powerful combination. And a lot of things can happen from that relationship. You guys are wise enough to be doing that on your own, but there's a lot of companies out there where that's just not happening, right? And where the founder, like you said, who talk about bad at risk mitigation, entrepreneurs, they're on a different scale, right? I mean, it's not a high tolerance for risk. It's measuring risk completely differently. And so, right, they need the sanity check. And when CFO and CTO together go and talk to a founder and say, we got to get real, they listen, right? So there's a lot of advantages in it, everything from cash management to, how we're thinking about the next iteration of the business. One of the things that comes up a lot these days, not just in tech, but throughout, is talent. And all of you hire not just talent, but you also hire very technical talent, right? I mean, you've got a ton of clinicians, right, Charles?
Yeah.
With you guys.
It's half of our company are clinicians.
And how is that recruiting? I mean, do you get involved in that at all?
No, not really. Right. I get involved when, and actually, unfortunately, it's becoming more prevalent, but making, right, if there's a certain concession we need to make on a salary or a bonus or something to entice somebody to join Nice Healthcare, that's when I get involved, but not on the normal day-to-day recruiting process.
And what about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, I would say that recruiting has not been an issue for a few reasons. One is a lot of smart people want to work for and with Chris and Earl because they're just wicked smart and they build great things. They build cool things. And, so we've probably had more inbound demand from engineers wanting to work with us because of them. But secondarily, we're big believers in that we win together. And so we grant stock options down to the lowest level, every level in the company. Every single employee is a shareholder. We are all aligned. And it really helps shift the thinking from kind of individual motives to what's best for all of us, because employers are not just employees, they're shareholders too. So it really does align all of our best interests, and it helps us attract and recruit where we need to as well.
Well, I think you bring up two key points. First is the stock options and having everyone aligned. I was always a believer in that as well. I mean, I think, 4 startups that we've done. Because you're right, it gets everybody aligned and people start asking questions that they might not normally have asked, right? And generally, they're really good questions. And the other is working with really talented people, right? And I think that that's one of the things we've learned in years of kind of looking at why do people move to cities? Why do people take jobs? Why do people move from company to company? And a theme that comes up quite often is the very best people want to work with the very best people. And if you can keep that culture going, attracting talent is less of a challenge, just as you said, because people want to work with rock stars. Rock stars want to work with rock stars, right? And that's a really important part of a culture, I think.
Yeah, and I think it creates this cycle of, right, you get that first super talented person. They know a lot of their old network, and a lot of people in their network are also super talented and they want to work together. And it creates this, right, gives you momentum from a recruiting standpoint, because, everybody knows somebody, everybody knows who they want to work with, who they don't. Right? And if they, to Rebecca's point, if they believe in the organization, if they enjoy working there, they're going to be your best advocates. They're going to be your best recruiters, because they're going to call up all their friends, all the people they trust and like working with and know are really good. And you've got an immediate pipeline. And I found that to be especially true in the engineering.
We've done some talent recruitment work in the past, and we found that a lot of them came from readers who weren't looking for a job, but they knew someone in their network that was. Oftentimes it was a kid, like, we want you to move back here, but not always. And so you're exactly right. The network is super important. And I think people that have your top talent people have a lot of people in their network that are also super great at what they do.
I think one other thing that I've heard lately is, especially from some of the younger generations, are being passionate about what you're doing. So there's a real drive to try to ensure that they have that feeling, that energy, and that passion every day when they get up and they go join this group of people to work, right? That they overall are doing something great for the country or the globe, for having that real intense passion is something that we've heard a lot lately.
Well, it's you're totally right. We found it's three things. They want to believe in your mission, and that's the passion. They want to work with other great people, and they want to trust senior management.
Yes.
And usually that's done. Well, it's two things. One is shared values. So when the company is getting engaged in whatever it is that motivates them outside of the business, whatever world issue they're trying to solve or community issue, you got to walk the talk on those things. But that's super important too, and that's a natural way to build trust quickly. But we all know it can be lost in a millisecond, right? You guys have any thoughts about that in your past experience? Because this is a really important issue that is a little tricky.
Just to reference Home Depot again, we had an inverted pyramid where, us at corporate, CFOs and the general counsels and, all the suits, we were on the bottom of the pyramid. Our customers were on the top,
Right.
The employees that supported our customers, mostly the stores. And so, you have to have the inverted pyramid because none of us can do it alone. I mean, we've got to work as a team, and we are no good without the rest of the team. We won't get anything accomplished. So.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. But a lot of companies, don't have that inverted pyramid. Don't think about it that way. Much of this stuff is obvious, but when we're in this mode where we're deploying capital as fast as we can, we're expanding and hiring as fast as we can, we don't have all the hiring practices that we probably should have in place, because we don't have an HR, whatever it is, right? I mean, I've been in all those situations, and no one has time to stop and take a breath. And I think that, these are the things that people need to be constantly reminded of, right? Which is, it is important to be very conscious of making sure that your actions align with what you say, that you are taking time to build relationships with your coworkers and do things like, how many kids do you have, and learn about, what motivates them and build those relationships. And then you can start talking about, the issues of the business. And for some reason, this is something that is easily forgotten, and especially I think with tech and the technologists, right? Because that is not their natural, and I'm making generalizations, but I've been in tech a long time. And so this is the other interesting thing. And I don't know if you guys have any comments on it, or if it's just something I'm personally interested in, but I feel like how we manage technology is going to change starting kind of now.
I think that tech leadership in the future is going to be less technical, more business savvy, more less technical skills, more leadership skills, more operational skills, more business process oriented, right? And I think that where you're able to say, here's the need, here's the problem of an organization, and know how to solve that using tech, right? And you don't necessarily need to be the guy or gal with hands on keyboards writing a bunch of code to fix a problem, but if you understand the fundamentals of it and understand the problem that you're trying to solve and the clearest, easiest, cleanest way to solve that problem using tech, I think that's the leader that's going to emerge over the next handful of years.
So I think it's a great thing, and I think that we need to be talking about it more.
I would counter too, and I agree with what Charles said, that it's important to be relationship oriented and have a business mindset in that role and connect the dots. But, I do think those CIOs that have practitioner backgrounds in training and can code will be more effective, because while we're all sitting here pretending like we really understand the technology and the software,
Right, no.
I would just be flat out lying if I told you I did. It is so super complicated. And, my husband's first question to any CIO would be, how many lines of code have you written? I think it's just so complicated that they're going to be more impactful if they are, technologists by trade and training.
Well, so you have the flip side of that coin, right? And we talk a lot about this with the CIOs that we interact with today, which is add to your skill set, right? I mean, you can go learn business skills. You can take, a finance course or
like a software engineer that goes to business school to get the MBA. But I'm lucky because I'm married to the CIO. So right. But I see this firsthand, and Chris laughs at me because I call them green screens, and they're not. It's just, I'm so old. I remember the DOS prompts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's the dashes and the dots and the spaces and the colons. And I'm like, he can read a whole screen of code and go to the issue, the problem in 2 seconds.
Right. That's crazy.
We're all just pretending if we really think that we understand this. And I do think a CIO that has those kind of skill sets will ultimately be more impactful.
I think that type of CIO, CTO would much more effectively work with his own team, right? Where he can talk the talk and walk the walk. For sure. But that leaves me open to I don't know, wanting that relationship between the CFO and the CTO to be better, because maybe that CFO and the CTO can work together to bridge that gap even more.
Sure.
And it's hard when you talk different languages.
It definitely is.
It's so hard, and we all want it so badly.
Yeah.
So what really cool technologies are impacting your guys' business right now?
Yeah, I would say so. The cool, air quote, cool stuff, cool tech we're working on is pretty unsexy from a kind of broader perspective, but it's really around scheduling our clinicians and knowing where they're at, where the next best optimized appointment is. Is it down the street? Is it across town? How much time? What's drive times? We send this clinician, not that clinician, right? Yeah. And it's really right. When I first found out that we were putting a lot of resources towards building that, I was a little bit surprised, because it seems like a pretty easy solution, but and maybe kind of to Rebecca's point, once you start talking to the technologists that are building this and the complexities that are there around, even things like traffic and construction, how much time do we allot per appointment, and then that drives hiring, and there's this great big downstream effect in our business to running our clinicians as efficiently as we can. And so we're putting a lot of technology behind that. And again, it's not the fun, sexy AI that everybody likes to talk about, but there are implications in our business and how efficient we can be.
Well, I hope everyone in the audience found this interesting. I did. I learned some things. All three very cool companies. And I'm looking forward to hearing back from you guys in a year or so and seeing how everything is going. And I think with that, it is time to sign off. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, panel. It's been great. And anybody got any final shouts they want to make before we?
No,
thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for coming. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.